Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another week of Parsha. As I'm sure you know, we had Simchat Torah just a few days ago, and on Simchat Torah, we finished reading the entire Torah, and we started again from the beginning. So this Shabbat, we are starting from the beginning of the entire Torah. We are reading the first book of Chumash, the book of Bereishit, and since we're starting off that book, the Parsha is also called Bereishit. Bereishit means at the start. And we are not just at the start of the Torah, we are at the start of the entire world. The Parsha begins, there is not even a world yet. There is just a big mess. And Hashem's like, hey, this is a mess. I'm going to make a world out of this mess. First things first, I think we need some light. And just like that, there was light. And Hashem's like, okay, but then the light needs to be a little bit more organized. It can't be messy light. So I'm going to separate the light from the darkness. And when it's light, we'll call it daytime. And when it's dark, we'll call it nighttime. So Hashem does that. And then Hashem's like, that was a pretty good first day. We'll call that the first day. The next day, Hashem's like, well, there's light and dark, but this world is still a big mess. There is water everywhere. There's water up. There was water down. There's water all around. We can't have that. So Hashem separates the water on the top from the water on the bottom. Hashem's like, water on the top, we can't have water hanging up on top anymore. I'm going to turn that into sky. We'll have sky on top. That's a pretty good day too. The next day, Hashem's like, okay, we've got the sky separated from everything under the sky, but everything under the sky is still a big mess. There is water everywhere. So we're going to gather the water into specific spots, which we will call oceans. And everywhere else will have dry land. And you know what else Hashem says? That dry land is kind of empty. Let's fill it up with plants. The earth starts sprouting grass and trees and flowers and fruits. All sorts of great plants start growing. Hashem's like, nah, that's what I'm talking about. That's pretty good. We'll call that day 3. The next day, Hashem says, okay, we've got plants, we've got water, we've got sky, but things are still kind of disorganized. Like the time is all disorganized. In fact, there is no time. I think it's time that I invent some time. So we are going to make a big light in the sky called the sun. And when that sun is out, we'll know it's daytime. And we'll make another smaller big light in the sky called the moon, and some even smaller lights called stars. And those will be out at nighttime, so we can keep track of daytime versus nighttime. And people will be able to use the sun and moon and stars to invent and keep track of days and months and years and holidays. Finally, time exists. That's a pretty good day 4. The next day, Hashem says, okay, we've got the sky, we've got the earth, we've got the water. The earth is full of plants, but the sky and water are kind of empty. Let's fill them up. I'm going to fill the water up with fish and other sea creatures. We're going to fill the sky with lots of birds, and Hashem blesses the birds and the fish and says, you guys should have a great time, have a great life, fill up the sky and the water respectively. And that was day 5. And the next day Hashem says, okay, well, we've got birds in the sky and fish in the water. We should have some animals moving around on the land. So Hashem creates land animals. And Hashem's like, okay, the land animals are pretty good, but I have a specific image in mind of something that I really want to make. And I'm going to make the exact thing that I'm picturing. I'm going to make a human being. So Hashem makes a human being, and Hashem's like, hey, human being, you get to be in charge of all these fish and birds and land animals. Have kids, fill up the world, eat whatever plants you want. That's a pretty good day 6. And the next day, for day 7, Hashem's like, you know what? This is the 7th day. I'm not going to create anything today. I'm going to take a rest from making things. I'm going to make this day holy. We will call it Shabbat. And that is why every 7 days the Jewish people take a rest from making things, and we have Shabbat. The Parsha continues. Hashem plants a garden near a place called Eden. There are 4 rivers going around this garden to keep it all nice and separate. And Hashem puts this one first human being into the garden to keep the garden safe, watch over it. Hashem says, human being, watch over my garden. You can eat whatever you want in it, except that tree over there is the tree of knowing about good and evil. If you eat from that tree, you can't live forever. You're going to have to die eventually. Don't do that. So the human being's hanging out in the garden, but Hashem notices that the human being is kind of lonely. And Hashem's like, I don't want people to be lonely. Being lonely is no good. So Hashem starts bringing animals over to the human being. The human being makes up names to the animals. He's like, that's a giraffe. That's a zebra. That's a hippopotamus. But at the end of the day, the human being is still lonely. Hashem's like, okay, clearly what you need is another human being. So Hashem helps the human being fall asleep. And while he's asleep, Hashem kind of splits the human being into two human beings, makes a second human being out of spare parts. And the first human being wakes up. He sees there's another human being. It's like kind of the same shape, but also a little bit different for variety. He's like, whoa, that is so cool. You're another human being. We'll call you a woman, me a man, because we're like almost the same, but kind of different. We can keep track of how we're different that way, different words. The man and the woman become best friends. They're both hanging out in the garden. Everything is great. There's also a talking snake in the garden, though, and the snake is super tricky. And the snake goes up to the woman one time. The snake's like, hey, is it true that God put you in the garden and says you're not even allowed to eat anything in it? That's so rude. And the woman's like, what? No, that would be crazy. We're allowed to eat whatever we want in the garden, except from that tree over there, the tree of knowing about good and evil. Apparently, if we eat from that tree, we'll die or something. And the snake's like, oh my God. God thinks that if you like touch the tree, you'll die. Look, I'm touching the tree. I'm touching the tree. Nothing bad's happening to me. See, God's a liar. You know what? You know what the snake says? I bet God's just really scared because if you eat from that tree, you'll become God. You'll become as powerful as God. And God doesn't want to share the power. God's scared that you're going to become more powerful than God. That's what's going to happen if you eat the tree. Check it out. I'm going to eat from the tree. You should eat from the tree. And the snake gives the fruit to the woman. She's like, well, it does look juicy and delicious. So she takes a bite. She's like, oh, this is a good fruit. I should be a good friend and share it with my friend, the man. So she brings the fruit to the man. She's like, check out this fruit. It's such a good fruit. And he eats the fruit. He's like, whoa, that is a good fruit. And then Hashem's like, hey, human beings, what's up? And they hide. And Hashem's like, why are you hiding? Did you eat the fruit that I said not to eat? And the man's like, it's not my fault. She gave it to me. And the woman's like, it's not my fault. The snake gave it to me. And God's like, first of all, she doesn't control your actions. Snake doesn't control her actions. You are all in charge of your own choices. You can't blame somebody else for making a suggestion. You were the one who made the bad choice. All three of you made bad choices. So for you, snake, Hashem says, your punishment is that you can't walk around like human beings walk around. You can just like slither around and crawl. And since this whole problem started from you being all buddy with these human beings aren't going to like you anymore, snake. I'll be like, snake, and try to stomp on you, and you'll try to bite them. You guys won't be friends anymore. And you, woman, Hashem says, since you made the bad choice of eating the fruit and also handed it to the man to eat some too, your punishment, your consequence is that it's gonna be really, really painful to have babies now from now on. So that's something to look forward to. And your punishment, man, since you also made the bad choice of eating the fruit that I said not to eat and then not even taking responsibility for your actions, your consequence is you don't get all your food handed to you on a silver platter anymore. You can't just live in this garden and eat whatever you feel like. You're going to have to become a farmer and work for a living. You're going to have to work really, really hard to earn the food that you eat. And so the human beings don't get to live in the garden anymore. Hashem kicks them out and puts like a spinning fiery sword to block the entrance. Human beings move out, have to work for a living now. And they also get married and have some kids. They have a kid named Cain and a kid named Hevel. And Cain and Hevel grow up. And Cain becomes a farmer and he, grows vegetables and stuff. And Hevel becomes a shepherd and he grows sheep. And one day, they decide to give presents to Hashem from stuff that they get in their work. And Hevel gives his very best sheep to Hashem. He's like, nothing but the best for Hashem. I will give Hashem my very best sheep. And Cain's like, hey, God, have some vegetables. And he just gives God some random vegetables. So you can probably guess which present you would like better. If somebody's like, this is my best thing versus this is a thing, I guess. Hashem likes Hevel's present better. And Cain is very sad about that. Cain's super sad. And Hashem's like, hey, Cain, don't be sad. You can just try harder. Like, it's not like you're a bad person. Just, work harder on making really nice presents and soon I'll really love your presents too. But instead, Cain just keeps feeling sad about it. And then Cain is like, oh, Hevel thinks he's so great. Hashem likes Hevel's presents. What does Hevel have that I don't have? Does he think he's better than me? He's not better than me. And Cain starts a fight with Hevel. And they're fighting, and Hevel dies. And this has never happened before in the history of the universe up until this point. Nobody has ever died before. Maybe he didn't even know it could happen, and he tries to cover up what happened. And Hashem's like, hey, Cain, Where's Hevel at? And Kain's like, I don't know. I'm not the boss of him. I'm not his babysitter. How am I supposed to know where Hevel is? I don't know where Hevel is. And Hashem's like, Kain, I'm Hashem. I know everything. I know that you killed Hevel, and now you're lying to me about it. So you made a bad choice, Kain. You get a consequence. Your consequence is you can't be a farmer anymore and live on your farm and live in one spot and get all the nice food from your farm. You are going to have to wander from now on. Wherever you go, you will never get to stay in one place for long. You're just going to have to keep wandering and wandering and wandering, going from place to place to place to place. And Kain says, Hashem, this is too hard for me. I can't do this. And Kain says, Hashem, I'm scared because wherever I go, people will know that I'm the guy who killed Hevel, and they're going to try to kill me, and I'm scared. And Hashem's like, you know what, Kain? That's a fair point. You made a bad choice, but you didn't know how bad it was going to be. And I want you to face consequences, but I don't want you to get hurt by other people. So I'm going to make a special sign, Hashem says, that says nobody is allowed to hurt Kain, or their punishment will be 7 times worse than yours. So Hashem makes a sign saying nobody's allowed to hurt Kain. And Kain begins to wander from place to place to place to place to place. And the Parsha continues with a family tree. The first human beings, they have a third kid. They name him Shet. And the Parsha gives Shet's whole family tree of his kids and their kids and their kids and their kids and their kids, all the way down to a guy named Noah. And meanwhile, Hashem's like, people are living for too long. They're living for like hundreds of years. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. It's out of control. I think 120 years is a good number of years for people to live. And also at this point in time, by the end of the Parsha, Hashem's like, these humans are really bad. They are making so many bad choices. They're treating each other badly. They are doing bad things. Honestly, I kind of wish I never made human beings. Maybe I should just destroy the entire world. Oh, except this guy Noah, who's was recently born. This guy Noah, he's a good person. Hashem's like, everyone is bad except for Noah. So we're going to stay tuned for next week's Parsha to find out if Hashem goes through with destroying the entire world. That is the end of Parshat Bereishit. Shabbat Shalom.